Hi everyone, this is Paul here with the Astrology Report for May 2017. Now, at the start of the month, the sun's going to be in Taurus, so this brings up themes of developing our resources, physical survival, strengthening or grounding our sense of identity into the body so that we become more effective at expressing ourselves and interacting with the world, and making sure that we're taking the actions on a consistent basis necessary to manifest our goals. And some of the resources that Taurus brings us, things like perseverance, steadfastness, determination, patience to some extent, and a couple of gifts brings us self-worth and self-esteem. These two being key because they strengthen our sense of identity enough to make us believe that we're worth or we're valuable enough to pursue the goals that we set for ourselves. Taurus is also about the natural world, so we're talking about may feel inclined to spend a bit more time in nature, to appreciate the organic cycles of life that nature demonstrates to us every single day as we see the slow changes. Taurus is a slow moving energy, it's not fast impulsive like Aries, it's the slow pace of life itself. If you look at the way things operate in nature, they're not constantly rushing around. There's a slow, steady flow to everything, and when we take the time to still the mind and engage this flow, then we tap into the natural abundance that is there for us if we choose to tap into it. But more often than not, we might lose touch with this flow of abundance because we used to the scarcity mindset that society is programs everyone with. When we let go of this idea of scarcity and accept that there is a natural abundance to things, we may just sometimes need a bit more patience, and accept that some things that we may think is a need is actually a want, because whatever we truly need will always be provided. And this is a key lesson of Taurus. When we detach ourselves with worldly concerns, and it doesn't mean escape it or anything like that, but we don't tie our self-worth into our possessions. We trust that our natural needs, etc., will be provided by Mother Nature. Things like food, shelter, water, physical touch, and peace of mind. These can all be provided for. We don't have to own loads of different possessions to get these things. As long as we maintain our minds open, turn towards heaven, and our hearts open and focus on devotion, then this will continue. Then on the 21st, no, it's not, sorry, the 20th of May, the sun then moves into Gemini, and this marks a shift away from focusing on physical survival and creating a sense of security for ourselves to looking at our perceptions and trying to expand them. Gemini is generally seen as the sign of short distance travel, communication, siblings and things like this, but more accurate word for it would be perception. Gemini is the eyes, after all, so our nervous system, or to some extent nervous system, and the function of communication isn't so much to hear ourselves speak, well that's how a lot of people seem to communicate. It's actually to help us understand where our perceptual biases are. This comes about when we engage in conscious conversation. So there's obviously the world around us, which is the objective reality, the way things really are, and then we take in all this information from the surrounding environment, and our mind creates its own version of the world around us inside our heads. But there's usually various perceptual biases. They come from various sources. Sometimes it's education, sometimes it's beliefs. But with Gemini, it's the storyteller. It takes all the objective facts and weaves them together into a broader picture, but ideally it doesn't get attached to either point of view. Geminis are twins, and this isn't about being two-faced, as Gemini sometimes characterized as being. It's about being able to perceive two different points of view at once. It's duality rather than duplicity. So with Gemini, it's looking at all the different points of views around the same thing and not being tied to one or the other, because when we do that, we suddenly see that there's different sides to the same truth, and that the world is a lot more complex than we believe, but these perceptual biases we're generally ignorant of until we start engaging in conversation with other people, because we all have our perceptual biases, but different people have different biases. So by speaking to other people with the intention to expand our mind, to open up to new points of view that we hadn't considered, we can see where we limit our perception of the wider world. And the more we engage in conscious conversation and find these biases and remove them, so we start seeing things more accurately, the closer our perception will be to perceiving reality as it is. Because the highest point of Gemini is being in the here and now, in the present moment, and where we get perception at its rawest forms. It comes straight through without any interference from any mental concepts or something that we've taken on board. Just the second part of the month. Now, there's a couple of 2 or 3 key dates. The main one is the 9th of May. This is because we have 2 major events, and the north node of the moon is moving out of Virgo and into Leo, with the south node moving out of Pisces and into Aquarius, marking a key shift in both the collective past that we need to be getting rid of and the collective future that we need to be moving towards. North node being the collective future and the south node being the collective habits and the past. Now, in terms of the south node in Aquarius, this means that we need to look at where do we just conform to society and don't appreciate our own individual truth. Where do we engage in aloofness, so we have this act of superiority, overlook what other people are saying. It's just waiting for more knowledge before we take any action. It's being satisfied with just seeing the vision without taking any action to manifest it. So this is where we need to move towards the north node of Leo. So it's expressing the childlike emotions of ourselves. It's being prepared to take center stage rather than conform to the crowd. It's following our heart's desires. It's engaging in that warmth and learning to both give and receive love to others. It's cultivating self-confidence and enthusiasm, and it's basically, can sum up with saying it's about embracing that divine spark that's at the heart of every single one of us. We all have a divine spark, and whilst we're conforming to the status quo, we don't really get in touch with it. It's still animating us, we wouldn't be alive otherwise. But the more we can align with that spark and appreciate who we truly are, the more creative power that we have, the more we can pursue our dreams and create the very things that we truly want to create. Because we're all creative beings, we all have the capacity to tap into the divine creative force. But if we're just sticking with the status quo or just going with the flow, we don't tap into this. The other event on the 9th is Juno turns retrograde. Juno is the asteroid of committed relationships. She was the divine consort of Jupiter, and as such, when she's retrograde, we're looking at our most committed relationships. I'm not talking about the romantic relationships of Venus, so we're talking about the committed ones, like spouses, like the soulmate friendships that we have that are far deeper than your average friendship. And with Jupiter, or Juno, we're looking at commitment, fidelity, honesty. Are we achieving equality in our relationships? Is there a sense of trust? Are we committed to the person that we've decided to commit our lives to? And are we committed to that bond? Are we committed to equality in that relationship? Or are there undercurrents of jealousy and resentment there? Are we trying to manipulate and control one another? Because these are the shadow sides of Juno's: bitterness, jealousy, fear of abandonment. These are key themes that we need to look into. Now, I'll do a separate video on both the North Node and Juno retrograde, but this is just a rough overview of the month, and it's important to mention these because these aren't just a day or so aspect. These are going to be carrying out over a longer period of time. North Node is in Leo for about 15 months, and same with obviously the South Node because the two are inherently linked. Juno is going to be retrograde for about 4 months. So it's important in all of this time that we're aware of these. The other key events are obviously the usual new and full moon. So first off, we have the full moon in Scorpio. That's on the 10th of May, and this will be both an opportunity to reflect on whether we get the balance right between Taurus, which is on body consciousness, it's the physical side of our being, and Scorpio, which is the deepest parts of our psyche. It's the depths of our being, that can truly transform everything if we can face the deepest, darkest parts of ourselves and not just stick to the shallow waters. And at the same time, the full moon in Scorpio is showing us the final result of whatever intentions we set during the new moon of Scorpio, which is back on the 30th of October last year. Because each full moon is both an opportunity to reflect on the recent intentions set, but also marks a completion point of a 6-month project. So it's also important that we look back to the 30th of October and remember what intentions we set for ourselves, because now on the 10th of May, we'll be seeing the final manifestations of that. And the other one is the new moon in Gemini on the 25th of May. Now, this is all about opportunity to set new intentions in areas like friendships, communication, exploring our local environment, aim to spend more time in the here and now, widening our perceptions, learning to become more tactful in our communication, so we're not just blunt and brash, we do think a bit before we actually say something. And it's also embracing our social side. Gemini is a very social sign, so like the social butterfly flight, flits from one place to place, looking at all different things available to see. So that's moon in Gemini, and that's a general overview for May. So I hope it's a useful guide for what we can expect. There'll be a lot of energy around to help us manifest things, tons of creative energy. As always, there'll be a few challenges to face, but other aspects which help to make things a little bit easier for us, as long as we have the right intentions in mind with these aspects from the sky. But remember, the sky does not control us. It may have influence over the collective energies, but how we respond to it is our choice. You can either react to something or you can respond to it. I.e., you can either blindly react in whatever way you instinctively do, or you can take a deep breath, pause, and think before committing any action. Easier said than done, I know, especially if we've lived our lives without really taking time to slow down. But the more we can slow down and become more conscious of our own mindsets, and the more we can sync up with the universal energies around us, the sun's transit through the zodiac outlines every single year for us, and effectively like a roadmap to set intentions at specific times of each year, the easier life tends to get, because we're operating with divine flow rather than against it. But as I said, it's entirely up to us. We all have free will, and whether or not we choose to align with a higher plan or not is our choice to make. So hopefully that's a useful guide for May, and may bring many blessings for you. Take care.